Hi, you're listening to a student-focused episode of the Sociology Show podcast. If you're studying the subject at GCSE, A-level, foundation, degree, or any other discipline, then this podcast could be of help to you. If you have a question for the show, then you can email the Sociology Show podcast at gmail.com, and one of the teachers, lecturers, examiners, or experts will answer your question for you. You can sponsor the show on the GoFundMe page and subscribe on all the usual podcast platforms. If you're going to class, going to the gym, or just chilling, put your headphones in and let's be sociology geeks together, eh? Hello and welcome to the Sociology Show podcast. This episode is for those of you taking AQA A-level Sociology Paper 2. And I was lucky enough in this episode to be able to talk to Kate Flatley. Kate is a lead examiner or a senior examiner, and Kate gives her advice on do's and don'ts for this paper, how to structure the questions, how to do the 10 marker, the second 10 marker. Remember, those two are slightly different from each other, and how to do the 20 marker, and a few tips in terms of how to get up to the very top levels if you are aiming for the A and the A star bracket. So without further ado, let's go over to the interview with Kate Flatley. Hi, Kate. Would you mind starting by telling us a little bit about who you are and your role with the AQA, please?
Hiya. So my name's Kate Flatley, and I am a senior examiner for AQA. So I've been marking for quite a few years now, just starting off as a general examiner, but now I'm classed as a team leader. So I go down and I standardise with all the lead examiners and the other team leaders.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So we're going to focus on paper 2, the topics in sociology. Obviously, there's 3 questions on the paper, and just want to talk a little bit about the structure and sort of do's and don'ts, where students tend to go right and where they tend to go wrong. So starting with the 10 markers, obviously there's 2 of them. What is the difference in terms of what the examiners are looking for in terms of the student's answer?
So the first 10 marker that you'll get is a outline and explain. So the focus is on application, and they will be looking for you to apply links across 2 different topics. Okay, so for example, if you're looking at, say, the family topic, it will be asking you to make links between maybe a change in gender roles and impact on policies or childhood or something like that. So that is about application by linking 2 topics together. The second is applying material from the item. So they're looking for you to show application from something from the item that will help you answer the question. And sometimes there's often a little bit of application to another link within the question as well. Okay, so they're both about application, but in different ways.
Yeah. And when you do get a question with the item, students are often concerned, how much do they have to refer to it? Do they have to quote from it? How many times? So for this 10-mark question, what's your advice on that one?
So the 10 mark with the item is that the instruction is very explicit to say apply from the item, and it tells you it 3 times in the question. It'll say read the item, and then it'll tell you it in the question, and it'll tell you in bold the item as well. So the instruction is clearly there. So if you don't make any reference to the item at all, you are going to cap your marks at 3 marks. And that might mean that you've answered the question really well. You've showed excellent knowledge, you've analysed, and you've done everything else that the question is asking you to do. But if you don't apply it from the item, if you don't draw your knowledge from whatever the hook has been placed in the item, you are going to cap yourself at 3.
What if the student only makes 1 link to the item? It's really well made. Is that enough to get to the top?
So if they only apply the item once, the maximum amount of marks that they can get is 7. There's often a misconception that because the question is asking for 2 paragraphs or 2 ways, that the marks are equally balanced between the 2 paragraphs, that you get 5 marks for paragraph 1, 5 marks for paragraph 2. And that is not the case. The mark scheme explicitly says that you can have 1 to 2 reasons applied from the item, analysed, and so on to get 7 marks. You can do it one way. So you can get 7 marks from 1 paragraph. So I always advise students that if they're running out of time or they are a bit unsure, I would always say to them, do 1 paragraph really, really well, because then at least you know that you can get a maximum of 7. If they're thinking about time management, maybe.
Yeah, that's really good advice. Good advice. And then working our way through the 3 questions then. So thinking about the structure, question 1, what would you expect the structure to look like for the first 10 marker?
So because it's asking you to show application between the two different parts of the specification that you are being asked about, you will need to show knowledge about both of those different parts. So I would start off with the first part and then show how does it link to the second. But it does also depend on what the question's actually asking, because if it's asking for a reason, you would have to say, well, what the reason was and how does part A link to part B? Or if it's asking for a way, it's more about you need to talk the examiner through a process of how the first thing has led to an impact on the second thing. So it does depend on what the question's asking, but definitely show a bit of knowledge about what part A is and then how that has logically led to something that's going to happen with part B. And then add your analysis and you at the bottom.
Right. And would you expect to see a sociologist or theory in every paragraph as well?
I would expect the student answer to be conceptually detailed. I would expect them to make reference to theories, not necessarily sociologist names. It's not about the names. It's about how well they can show the explanation of what is something is being explained. And students often get hung up about, but I don't know who said what. And it's just really reassuring for them to know that it's not about the sociologist names. It's about the explanations that they're given in their answers.
Thank you. Thank you. And for the second 10, what would you expect that to look like?
So I think a logical way to answer it is start off with the item and then you basically show what do you know about that hook in the item, explain what that is, and then apply it in a way that answers what the question's asking. So I would start with that. But I have seen students that have given their explanation and then said this is drawn from the item at the end. So there isn't a hard and fast way of structuring that. But I think logically it would make sense to start from the item hook and then develop your answer from that way.
Yeah, I think that's good, isn't it?
That would be the most logical way.
Yeah, because if students then forget to make the link, they say, no, they've done it straight away then. Yeah,
Exactly.
definitely. And then on to the 20. What would you imagine a good 20 mark looks like?
So a good 20 marker is you would be probably expecting a student to be writing about 3 to 4 paragraphs about whatever the question is asking. And again, it's following that really strong structure in the fact that they might have used the item as a point of reference. The item's there to give you clues. So they might draw some knowledge from that, applying sociological knowledge. So that could be through concepts, or it could be referencing theories, or through studies that they might know. And then making sure that as they go along, they're analysing and evaluating, and the top band answers will do those skills consistently throughout the maybe 3 or 4 paragraphs, depending on timing. A top band answer would also come to a reasoned conclusion as well. So whatever the question is asking, they will go back to the overall picture of what the question is and make a direct reference to that in that final paragraph.
Thank you. And you just mentioned top band. Thinking about top band, one of the most common questions I get is what makes an A star distinctive from, say, an A grade or a high B grade? So to get to that very top, what does an A star answer look like?
So an A-star student and an answer that an A-star student would produce would be answering explicitly what the question is asking. Okay, so let's say the question was about the division of labour. A good student will write a lot of knowledge about the division of labour. They will analyse it, they will evaluate it as they go along. But an A-star answer will really knit their answer explicitly to what the question is actually asking, and they won't deviate from it too much, if that makes sense. But they will bring in, it's like when you read it, you can tell that they really understand what they are writing about, and that really does come across, and it's really hard to explain it. It's really hard to teach it explicitly. But what I would recommend for students to do if they are aiming for the A star is read as much as they can, look at different textbooks, different viewpoints, so they can formulate a real good understanding about the different topics that they're studying. And that really does come across when they answer the question, and they really understand what the question's asking, and their answers really knit very closely to that.
Yeah, a lot of students kind of answer by rote, don't they? They've learned something and they're just regurgitating it rather than specifically what the question's actually asking. Yeah. And what about A-star in general across all three papers? How's a student going to achieve that?
So I would say that if they were aiming for the A-star, is that they would probably do it from year one. You'd probably start to see them having those habits and those qualities that is really getting them to be that A-star student, in the fact that they are reading around the subject, they've got that genuine interest in society and the topics that they're being studied, and they're just constantly practicing and honing their skills throughout the 2-year course, to be really practicing exam questions, looking at how they've been worded, looking at the mark schemes, but also looking at the examiner reports, because they give you such a really good insight to why students got high marks and where students lost marks, and the common misconceptions that there were. So then you can avoid falling into those traps. And I think doing things like that really will give you that advantage. And I think it's sort of remembering that if you look at the exam paper, we're AQA. If you look at the exam papers, we're quite lucky in the fact that when you do a 10 marker, the skills are the same for whether it's a 10 marker outline and explain on paper 1, a 10 marker outline and explain on paper 2 or paper 3. Same with a 30 marker. The only difference is that 120 marker methods in context, which is approached slightly different from all the other questions. But actually, in terms of skills, it's very consistent across all the 3 papers. And I know some different subjects, what you do on paper 1 is totally different from what you do on paper 2 and what you do on paper 3, for example. So sociology is a very good subject if you are if you can practice those skills. And also think synoptically, there's lots of overlaps that you can be using and drawing upon your understanding from different topics to give yourself a really good answer.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you. And just one final question. Have you got any other advice, particularly for paper 2, top tips, do's and don'ts?
So massive top tip, and this is something that I've read from the examiner reports that I've been looking at for the past few years, and students always run out of time on that final essay, whatever it is on section B. So I would be recommending students to be practicing time, stick to your timing. So they recommend it's an hour on section A, an hour on section B, 15 minutes per 10 marker, roughly 30 minutes for a 20 marker. Obviously adjust if you've got extra time or exam access arrangements, but really just focus on your timing. Don't compromise marks on them bigger questions that you probably could answer quite well and you'd have probably really good solid knowledge about, and spending too long on maybe section A's 2 10 markers. So definitely be practicing timing as well. Don't neglect that.
That's excellent. Thank you so much for helping out, Kate. I really do appreciate it, and some top advice there.
Oh, thank you so much for inviting me. It was good.
Thank you. Cheers. Thank you.
If you are a regular listener to the Sociology Show, then you could help with the costs of promoting and hosting the podcast. If you can spare even a small amount, then you can donate on the GoFundMe.com website by searching for The Sociology Show. There is no obligation, of course, and all future downloads will continue to be free. A huge thank you to all those that have already donated. Your kind gesture will help to continue keep the show going and growing. Best wishes and keep enjoying the show.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to the podcast. If you would like to contact the show or be interviewed, then please email thesociologyshowpodcast@gmail.com.